The season 24-25 is, well, almost upon us. And it's the Jack and Joe show with Joe Sansom. How are you?
Very, very well. We were just saying that we haven't spoken since we just beat Luton Town, and that feels like an awfully long time ago. To be honest, it was. Quite a lot has changed in our personal lives, in the world, in the football world, and we have so much to talk about. We're both really excited for the season to start, and this will be it. We are back weekly from now till the end of the season. Jack and Joe show is back, and today we're delighted to be on the podcast feed as well.
We are on the podcast feed. We're on the YouTube feed. We're absolutely ecstatic to be back. What have you got now? We're recording at 6:20 on Friday, July 26th. So about 21 days until the season starts, basically. So 3 weeks. In fact, it might be 3 weeks today because it is a Friday. Where do we even start? I feel like we have to start with Ryan. Ryan Sessegnon is coming back to Fulham. Now, I actually, just for a bit of context and where we sort of left off at the end, I watched a little bit of the end of the last Jack and Joe show we did, and we mentioned Ryan because he was linked with the club, and we said, wouldn't it be great? We're both nostalgia merchants. We'd love him back. However, we were like, it's not going to happen. And then we found out he was training with Crystal Palace, and we thought, not only is it not going to happen, he's going to be at a rival Premier League team. That's going to be heartbreaking. And then, what was it? Yesterday, the news dropped in the morning, 10 a.m. in the morning, from Fabrizio Romano, that Ryan is not going to Palace. He's going to Fulham. And I'm anticipating an announcement tonight, but it could be tomorrow. It could be over the weekend. Joe, how on earth do you feel about this?
Delighted. When the news came through, we were just sort of still, I don't know what the opposite of reeling is, but still on a high from the Emile Smith Rowe update that we got, which we'll speak about in a bit. Obviously not as far down the line, because what we go from your mate Fabrizio was a here we go in terms of it's done. It was from absolutely nothing to it's done, he's signing. It's a matter of when, not if. And that's where we're at right now. And I couldn't really believe it. At first, I checked if it was a real account because it felt a bit too good to be true. My head was very characteristically warm when he was training with Crystal Palace. So I'm just absolutely delighted. And, I want to sort of preface this by saying that I've been very, very frustrated this summer with Fulham, like extremely frustrated. That hasn't really changed. I think we've been too slow. I think we've been too reactive. I don't think we've been forward thinking. This just undoes a lot of that for me in terms of it's a free agent, no-brainer. He knows the club. A second chance is going to be absolutely wonderful for the fans and for him. He can cover us on left back, at left wing. If we wanted to go to a 5 at the back, we've just got our new assistant head coach who played that system in Portugal. Could be left wing back. Obviously played some of his nicer football there for Spurs before he did have more bad luck with injuries. This is a no-brainer for me, and I'm delighted that he's come back. And The Athletic, who I do sort of take as gospel, have said that Palace turned down the chance to take him. I'm going to choose to believe that he chose us, even if it's not true, out of the two options, just because he loves the club, he's a boyhood fan, and this is his second chance. And let's face it, we're a far more appealing prospect than we were when he left us, when we'd just been relegated. We were an absolute basket case, an absolute mess of a club. There was no process in terms of squad planning. There was no process in terms of what do we do when we get promoted. The head coach situation was changing constantly. Now we have a bit of sustainability about us. We have a bit of consistency with our squad, with our manager. And it's just great to see with our Premier League status as well, of course. So delighted about this. I hope that it's the first one we get over the line, the first of many, because we do need many. But even if you strip it back to the absolute bare bones, a young player, if we disassociate anything else, a young player, 24 years old, reasonably young in terms of footballer's age, coming in instead of some older players that have left, talking about Bobby Reid, talking about potentially Willian. the squad changes that we needed, they have to start this summer, and the players that we've been linked to on the whole have been young, promising, experienced, despite their age, and this does fit into that as well. So if we can keep him fit, and let's face it, who better to have a career renaissance under than Marco Silva? So fingers crossed, this is it for Sessegnon. So excited.
Oh, it's, you could talk about every summer. There's a signing that gets you off your seat and gets you really excited. I think last summer was, who was it? Maybe even Calvin Bassey.
Bassey, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, that was quite exciting. The season before, João Palhinha, definitely.
Leno.
But this one is because literally, I mean, I've reacted to the news, and I'm going to take my journalist hat off now and put my fan hat on finally, and say, he is one of my favorite Fulham players of all time, regardless of where he was and regardless that he left. And those initial first few years when he broke through, he scored against Cardiff, he then scored a hat-trick against Sheffield United, he then set up the goal for Tom Cairney in the playoff final, scored in the playoff semi-final against Derby, playing in the Premier League for us. He is one of the Fulham greats because of the story and because of what he actually achieved. And I don't think anyone begrudged the move when he went to Spurs. I think everyone was pretty much okay with it and basically wished him the best. And every time Sessegnon was playing for Spurs, I'm watching. I was seeing what he's doing. Every time he was involved in a game with Hoffenheim, I was checking, if he was playing, if he was being involved. And I always thought in the back of my head, if ever there was a chance we could bring him back, do it. And as soon as we saw he was released from Spurs, I was like, it's an open goal. Does it make much sense? I'm not sure. And that's what sort of talked me out of the move actually happening, because I don't think at that time it made sense that he would come in and sort of play enough minutes to warrant the move. But now, thinking about it, now that Ballo-Touré's gone, and he can play left wing as well, and Willian's obviously not going to sign on, I don't think. Yeah. And you've obviously got Robinson at left back. There is a place for him in the squad. And it's just such an incredible story. I just can imagine, obviously the announcement's going to be really, really special, I can imagine. But then, when we play Leicester, when we play United on the opening day, and you hear the Fulham fans giving me a round of applause, and that's just going to be so fun. And I think
where I sit in H7, where they warm up in front of you, and you can just imagine everyone coming up and singing, "He's one of our own" again.
It's going to be so special. Emotional. I think that is it. It's going to be an emotional reunion, because we associated Sessegnon, and when Sessegnon was at the club, with some of the, I'd say some of the best memories I have of supporting Fulham. Definitely 2017-18 season. Even 16-17 was a great fun. That was a good season. It's just fantastic. And obviously, the Premier League season didn't go very well for him. He scored 2 goals and we were relegated. But that whole season was just a bit of a disaster. Every time my phone pops, I'm just looking just to see if it is Twitter, but it's not. I'm just as a fan, I'm just so excited. So excited. He deserves the best, and we can give him a platform to revitalize his career. That's the most important thing. Let's go to Emile Smith Rowe. With so much has happened. Tossin's gone to Chelsea. Bobby Reed's left. Willian's probably not going to sign. We've got a new assistant coach. I mean, loads has happened since we last spoke.
And that Palhinha saga, I mean...
Palhinha's gone,
My head was hot every day for about a month, and then we still lost because he left. I think just a quick note on Palhinha, because we both waxed lyrical on him on this show ever since he signed. Absolutely gutted he's gone. But in a similar vein to Sessegnon, don't begrudge him the move at all. And do wish him all the best there. It was actually interesting, Jack, when you were saying about every time Sessegnon was playing for Spurs, you'd want to watch. And I remember Sessegnon scoring for Spurs at Bayern Munich at the Allianz in the Champions League. And I remember going on Twitter. I think I was at the theatre that night or something. So I'd been away from my phone, went back and checked. And the reaction on the time was honestly Fulham had scored a goal on a match day. Everyone reacting to it. And that is a love that he hasn't received elsewhere. I think Spurs fans were on the most part, probably good to him, as were probably Hoffenheim. But, he never had the connection because he never managed to play, to be honest, a meaningful amount of games or have a meaningful amount of connection with the fans in game, on match days, etc. So excited he's back. Smith Rowe, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, and I don't think it matters either way because I want them both to play for the club. This one excites me more than Sessegnon, and quite significantly. And the reason for that is because I rate Smith Rowe so highly. And obviously, similar to Sessegnon, he's had very bad luck with injuries, but it shouldn't be forgotten that he essentially saved Arteta's job a couple of years ago, along with Saka, when he was on the verge of getting sacked. Big Sam was saying they're in a relegation battle. They played Chelsea on Boxing Day, the same day we drew 0-0 with Southampton in lockdown. And they beat Chelsea 3-1. And at one point they were 3-0 up. And Smith Rowe was thrown into that game. He hadn't been starting at all. And he completely ran the show. He was fantastic, as was Saka.
Right.
Both of them solidified their place in the team. Only difference is one had injury problems, the other didn't. I'm not saying they're the same quality of player exactly, but one had a bit more luck with injuries, whereas Smith Rowe didn't. And if we can get him back to anything like that player, he is our best player, in my opinion, by significantly, in my opinion. He has the potential to be. 35 million, I think, is a decent fee, is the fee that's been rumoured. And according to David Ornstein, who, as we both know, is the absolute GOAT for transfer news at this point in time, Gary Neville. So I really am hoping that this gets done. It sounds like we're close to an agreement. The rumours that Dharmesh Seth from Sky, who's pretty reliable for Fulham recently, has been saying is that it's all to do with the structure of the deal in terms of how much of that 35 million is paid up front, how much of it is add-ons to be sent to Arsenal depending on appearances, maybe similar to the Leno deal where, let's face it, we had their pants down. So I'm not surprised that Arsenal want to be a bit more careful, potentially. The best sign you can see is that Arsenal fans are gutted to see him go, but hoping for the best for him. And, I want this one to get over the line. I think that he improves our attack massively. I can see him being in a number 10, but mostly can definitely see him being on the left-hand side of our attacking three behind Muniz, because that's where he played his best football for Arsenal and his most proficient football in terms of goals and assists in the season after that breakthrough. So really massively excited for this one, Jack.
Yeah, honestly, it's a very good signing. It's a very exciting signing. Obviously, if he comes in and people know him as the number 10, then where does that leave Andreas Pereira? And Andreas Pereira is a player who's been here for 2 years and hasn't really had much competition for that position. He's been a mainstay in Fulham's team for 2 years. So the fact that Smith Rowe could play on that left-hand side won't disrupt the continuity of that sort of link-up that Pereira brings to Fulham as a team. I am excited about Smith Rowe. Like you say, Arsenal fans are absolutely gutted, like really gutted, and it's because an academy player who had so much potential leaving the club. We've been through that. We've been through that with Ryan Sessegnon, with Fabio Carvalho. So you're obviously going to be gutted. I'm amazed it's their record sale at 35 million for a club like Arsenal.
I actually found out, Jack, it's their joint record sale. Do you know who that's level with? Because it surprised me. I was literally just reading.
Well, it won't be Thierry Henry then, because that would have been my guess.
It was Oxlade-Chamberlain, apparently.
Come on, what's Liverpool?
Apparently that was around the 35 million pound mark.
What happened to him, really?
Yeah, we're linked with him very vaguely from Turkish reports, and we always say Turkish journalism tax because it's often absolute rubbish in terms of the English teams, but fair. But sorry, Jack, I interrupted you, but Smith Rowe, I think that we've gone from having no left wingers after Willian's gone to potentially having two players that can play there in Smith Rowe and Sessegnon. Is that where you see him coming into play? Or like you said about Pereira, do you see it as he is just competition for our attack and we'll start somewhere?
Well, yeah, I think that Smith Rowe will have to sort of not play as the 10 because Marco Silva's very loyal to Andres Pereira. And I feel like there were rumours that there have been rumours that Newcastle wanted Pereira and Chelsea, which is bizarre. But and obviously that could resurface. That's fine. But predominantly, I think right now, if you think about the Man United game, which is the next big game for Fulham, obviously, Pereira's got to play as the 10 and Smith Rowe on the left. Because if you think about the way if Fulham were to set up, you've got Muniz, you've got Smith Rowe on the left, you've got Pereira as the 10, and you've got either Adama or Harry Wilson on the right, probably Wilson.
Yeah.
That is quite an aggressive press from the front. And a lot of energy that Pereira brings pressing. If Smith Rowe was to follow suit, suddenly that puts pressure on. And if United get out, then they've got space to drive into midfield. Fair enough. But there are definitely traps to be laid there. And I think a player like Smith Rowe, who's very zippy, can run at defenders, obviously on the ball and off the ball. And Pereira's done that for 2 years for Fulham. Harry Wilson's very good at doing that. Muniz can put the pressure on as well. That's quite a good sort of front line to have attacking-wise, and then also when teams want to get out against us. So I think having the energy of both Smith Rowe and Pereira on the pitch is fine, and it's very good. Obviously, Willian's a left-sided winger who, obviously, at his age, couldn't press for 90 minutes every single week. Smith Rowe is a player who can bring a little bit more energy in that sort of situation. And that's obviously very exciting. And obviously, Fulham do like to press. So that's something that hopefully Marco Silva's got in his mind going into the new season.
And ultimately, we need more goals in the team in general. And Willian, I've loved him being at the club. I think he's been a fantastic player to watch. I do still hope that he stays for one more year because I think he'd be a wonderful option to have. And let's face it, for no transfer fee. I think that when it comes to our left-hand side last season, you can tell the quality and technical ability that Willian still has. He draws defenders out. He normally plays the right pass or makes the right decision. But I do think his final action sometimes left a lot to be desired in terms of his goal scoring. He scored 3 league goals for us last season. 2 of those were from the spot in the same game against Wolves. And as much as that was fantastic, it was a big win. 1 goal for the rest of the season. Obviously, you got that one in the cup against Liverpool at Anfield, which was a fantastic goal. But we just didn't see it enough. And Smith Rowe is the sort of player that could come in and very reasonably get double figures for goals coming from that left-hand side. That wouldn't be out of the question for him. And that's something that we, what if Muniz goes through a goal drought up front, our new R9, which is great. What if Harry Wilson has another season where it's a little bit hot and cold? He has games like Luton, then he has a 4 or 5 game spell where honestly he might as well not be playing. Pereira's never been the most proficient in terms of scoring himself. He sets up a lot, and that's great. But in terms of him actually being the person finishing it off, he doesn't really do it often enough. And, as you go further back, obviously the story's obvious. So I think it'll be a wonderful option to have. And also just gives us that flexibility that he is comfortable playing in the middle. Previously, if Andreas Pereira doesn't play, it's Tom Cairney, it's Iwobi, it's Harry Wilson. I would say they're all a similar mould of player in terms of they're quite flexible where they can play, other than Tom Cairney, who's always, quite central, other than when Ranieri was in charge, or even going further back, Kit Simons. But I think that Smith Rowe is someone that really just does upgrade our front line and excites me greatly. Palace have been interested. The Palace one doesn't make as much sense to me purely because they have so many players that can play in the 10 or in the attacking midfield positions. I suppose one caveat is that Eze is linked to Arsenal and is something that I thought might be potentially an option, but it sounds like they don't want to go as high in terms of transfer fee as we do, at least at the time of recording, which is great. It sounds like we're in the lead. It's ours to lose. And we need to just get this agreed, flying back from the States, then flying to Portugal so you can watch him in person back. And that would be fantastic.
Actually, just to sort of round off the front of the attack, I just sort of want to talk about that right-hand side because it will lead us on to our next topic. Yeah. So right now, I say we've got 3 options to play on the right. Harry Wilson, like I say, and Adama Traore, like I say, both bring different qualities and different attributes to the game. We saw at Man United away that Adama's pace stretched defence and it made us win the game with Iwobi scoring. I think Iwobi obviously can play on that side as well. Harry Wilson loves to cut in, scored a great goal against Brighton, cut inside, brilliant. And actually, Harry Wilson, on his day, he is so good. And him and Smith Rowe on either side would actually be really complementary. However,
really exciting.
Another option we could play on this right-hand side, and please, just don't go anywhere. Jay Stansfield. It's like a new signing for me. He's going to come in. He's going to be hungry. He's going to be raw, and he's going to be ready for the Premier League.
Yeah.
None of this going back to Birmingham business. Let's have you as a Premier League player in our squad. I would genuinely, 70 minutes in to the game against Man United, the game's, let's say, 1-1. Traore started. Wilson's on the bench and Stansfield's on the bench. Do I want... I'd actually be tempted to bring on Jay Stansfield ahead of Harry Wilson in that situation. I don't think Adama's going to start that particular game, but I'm giving you a situation where I feel like Stansfield obviously is third choice on that right-hand side, but there is a scenario, there are situations where he should be brought into games.
Yeah, agree. And also for anyone that's getting a bit worried about the Stansfield news, this might age like milk, but as of right now, there's nothing concrete about it. And the Birmingham fans on Twitter, according to them, he's been in Birmingham every day for the past month. They're saying he's had his medical there and he's been watching the team. He's been liking their posts. Anyone can like posts, mate. I've liked, other teams' posts before. If they've posted something I like, doesn't mean I'm going to play for them. Albeit I'm not a Premier League footballer.
Or support them.
Or support them. But it's just, he was literally playing for us in a behind closed doors friendly a couple of days ago against QPR. Played sufficient minutes from what we can see. We don't have the exact details, but Silva said that he wants him to be a part of this squad. It looks like, from spying at that picture, his squad numbers changed to 28, which is interesting because that is, let's face it, a far more agreeable squad number than 65 is. So I think that he's been told that he's going to have involvement. The only thing that I can see from his point of view is if he wanted to play more consistent minutes. But I promise you this now, if he wants to play consistent minutes, he doesn't want to do that in League One. Because last season he played in the Championship and that would be a step backwards. And that is no disrespect to Birmingham. I know that he probably had a great season there last year and enjoyed it despite the
He's very well liked
position.
By the fans.
He's very well liked. He had a good connection with them. I get it. And I get why they want him to come back and believe that he would. But from his career perspective, I don't think that makes any sense, personally.
I agree. I agree. I think this is the time now. You've had two loan spells, one in League One, one in the Championship, and you've proven in basically both leagues that you can score goals and be a menace. Let's not forget Birmingham were relegated, and Stansfield is basically one of the only players in that squad that's come out with their head held high. Hence, Birmingham fans want him back. But let's not forget, 2 years ago, when we just joined the Premier League, he started a Premier League game, and I think sort of got the assist for Bobby De Cordova-Reid's goal against Brentford. He played, I think, 77 minutes of that game. He came on with 7 minutes to go against Wolves the week before in the blazing heat.
These are drawn on after that day, by the way. Like it was absolutely singed.
There is definitely. I mean, I remember asking Silva about Stansfield at the back of last season. And I was like, he's had a great season, but now what? And he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves the kid. I hope, I pray, I think he'll go to Portugal. He'll play some minutes. We'll get to see him. And if I have the opportunity, he's definitely a person of interest I would like to ask about because, he is homegrown. He is one of our own. And suddenly you've got, Sessegnon coming back. You've got Stansfield. And all this talk about, not many academy players are making it through. Well, suddenly I think we're going to have quite a few on the preseason tour. And I think we'll have at least 2 or 3 in the matchday squad for the game against Man United. Obviously, Sessegnon's been gone, now come back. He's still an academy prospect. It still sort of counts. But yeah, I'm imagining a scenario where we've got Stansfield playing in the 10 because I think he could play behind. We've got Sessegnon out on the left, Martial Godot out on the right, and up front Callum Osmond in a preseason friendly because I think Callum is good enough as well. I mean, watching him against the Spurs under 23s, under 21s in the Premier League Cup final, I mean, he was unbelievable, like really sharp. So what I was going to mention was the fact that Dibley Diaz has gone out on loan. Tanton signed a new contract. Arujo signed a new contract. These are all very, very good signs that these players that were so impressive for the last couple of years at the academy are now breaking into men's football and now signing professional contracts or new contracts at Fulham. And there's not even the player we haven't even mentioned yet, who I'm the most excited about, and that's the guy who lives, a couple of streets away, in Joshua King. Now, Josh King has, had a really bad ankle injury at the back of last season, but he's really liked by Silva, and he's going to be, hopefully, on the pre-season tour and get some minutes. It's so hard to say this. I don't want Josh King to go out on loan this season because I think he is good enough to be in and around the first team, just on the bench maybe every week, come on and play the odd minutes. He was on the bench against, I think, Burnley away last season and maybe a one more game because we were short on numbers. Yeah. But genuinely, if we are maybe at the beginning of the season struggling for numbers, put him on the bench. I think he is and could be the next big thing for Fulham.
Yeah. My only worry about any of these young players, no, all good, is just I just want to make sure they play enough football. So the same with Stansfield. If he does stay, I just want to make sure that it is a worthwhile year of his career and his development. Same for Josh King. I agree with you that these players, if you're good enough, you're old enough. Age doesn't really matter to Silva. Even if it's cup action at the first few months of the season when we're in the early stages of the Carabao Cup and hopefully stay in it. That'd be great. But I like that we're getting loan deals lined up for some of the other players as well, like Dibu Diaz, who went today, new contract for Tanton, and Harvey as well was great to see. So I really just hope that we do see glimpses of them in Portugal. And also then obviously the Hoffenheim friendly as well before the season starts. And put it this way, I would much rather have them on the bench than anyone returning that isn't going to play too much football. Like they're not going to be involved, but for example, Vinicius and Mbabu, for example, we want to see players that have a future at this club, and they don't, as harsh as that is to say. But Jack, we hopefully won't be lower numbers for that Man United game because there's a few other irons in the fire, and one that will not go out is Andre. Now, we were both quite excited last night at the time of filming because there were some reports coming from Brazil, admittedly not for the first time, saying that we'd agreed a fee with Fulhamish for Andre. Now, that seems to have been quashed by the fact that no one reliable in the English media or anyone else for that matter has picked it up. It seems like talks are ongoing. It seems like 30 million would get it done. My question to you, Jack, is why the hell isn't it getting done?
It does seem confusing as well because we knew Paulinho was going to leave, really. Yeah. I mean, deep down, we knew he was going to... Well, we knew there was going to be interest from Bayern Munich, and we knew he was desperate to go. And as soon as he said what he said in that press conference, I sort of went, that's that then. Really? Yeah. I mean, that really is it.
Same.
So we've known about this for such a long time, and we've identified the target, not only this summer, but we identified it basically last year. And it seems fairly straightforward. And obviously, he plays in the exact same position. He is the direct replacement for Paulinho, who was so highly anticipated to leave the club. It's a good fee, and yet we're still sort of sitting here and waiting. It sort of reminds me of Manuel Solomon, where we were just waiting. And that was a free transfer, and that went on for a while. Obviously, I can tell you're frustrated. There's a lot of people frustrated about the deal.
Yeah.
I obviously want it to come off as much as you do and everyone else. I just think it's a case of we're maybe just haggling over a few million quid, maybe. And the terms apparently are all set to be fine. It's going to be a 5-year contract. He's the next big thing in Brazilian football. I keep hearing from the podcast who mentioned him months ago and did a 10-minute segment on him, and they keep relaying that same podcast because they want everyone to listen back. And I'm going, I've listened to you. I've listened to what you've had to say. Now I'm so sold. Bring him to the Craven Cottage. And yet we're still sitting here and we're wondering if it's actually even going to happen. Every time Andre plays, I'm looking at his Instagram, seeing, is that a farewell? But so far, Joe, we are still waiting. I would imagine, just playing devil's advocate, that Marco Silva is a bit annoyed that this hasn't been wrapped up by now. because it's clear. Pardon the pun,
Is
because that's
clear.
Marcus Silva says that a lot. That that is his target. He wants Andre, and hopefully Andre wants us. He wants to play in the Premier League. So, I mean, I know for a fact that Alistair McIntosh went out to Brazil. I mean, everyone knows that now, that Alistair McIntosh went out to Brazil, to speak with the club. And that was ages ago. So the fact we're still haggling or negotiating is a little bit frustrating, because it's someone who just seems to be or has been on that radar for so long that it feels like a click of the fingers, and it could be done. And it's annoying.
It frustrates me because
he's on the other side of the world as well. So
it's 5 million from the sounds of it. And don't get me wrong, 5 million in any other field other than football is ridiculously huge. But let's talk about it in what it is. In a football transfer, it's not much at all. And I think a 5 million difference when we'd agreed 5 million more in January is ridiculous, because the rumours were in January we were willing to pay 30 million if Palhinha went. So I'm very interested to know, because funnily enough, I don't think that his age is suddenly an issue. He's very young. So in those, 6 months, I don't know why it's suddenly changed. We've just sold Palhinha. Like, let's get that straight. So Marco Silva is going into pre-season without his star man, with a replacement that is ready to come, that costs far less than what we just sold Palhinha for, and we're just not doing it. And part of me wonders, is it because there's a few deals ongoing at once? Do we need to know exactly how much we're paying for Smith Rowe to fund Andre?
Maybe.
But then I would have thought that Andre was the priority first, purely because we have lost someone in that position. I suppose technically we've lost someone in Smith Rowe's position. We've lost Willian. So could see it either way. All I know is that I'm waiting for someone very reliable, a Peter Rutzler, for my sins, Fabrizio Romano, a David Ornstein, to come out and to say, deal agreed. Because once deal agreed, I think that is literally it. I think that he will agree terms. I don't think you pursue someone for 2 years if they haven't basically said, yeah, mate, I'll join if you agree it. I think the medical will obviously be fine, because he is playing football right now. He doesn't have any big issues going on.
No.
So I hope this one gets done. And I hope this one gets done because I don't want to go to Old Trafford opening day without a replacement for Palhinha. One of the things I put on Twitter, which is positive, is that if we were to play tomorrow, and at this point, as we said, we've signed no one at this point. Sessegnon isn't even official, so we signed no one. We would only need to make one change from the team that beat Man United at Old Trafford in February. And that change is Tosin out, Diop in. Because we were without Palhinha that day. We were without Willian that day. And Bobby Reid wasn't involved either. So for that reason, there's no massive change other than Diop coming in, which isn't the biggest problem in the world, let's face it. In build-up, he slightly hampers us in terms of he's not as good on the ball as Tosin. But defensively, I think he's good. I think he's astute. I think he's Premier League quality. I think we can do better, and that's with no disrespect to him. So I am very much hoping that one of the next rumours that comes about is a right-sided centre-half that can partner Bassi, hopefully for the long term. Silva's said, as you pointed out, Jack, previously, that we want 2 centre-backs this summer. That's without even getting into the possibility of Ream going as well. So, I mean, that has to be the next priority. But like you say, Jack, I suppose we've got a few weeks to go. I think that paying 5 million to have someone for the entire pre-season is worth it, in my opinion. And I think Silva would say the same.
It's a 5-year contract as well.
Yeah. So 1 million a year. Does it,
amortization.
Yeah.
Centre-back is concerning me through lack of links. Just Trevor Chalobah, which I basically thought was a no-brainer for a signing, and Mengi. This is now 3 years in a row, really, where the centre-back issue is rumbling on throughout the summer. It was really bad the first year. We waited up until, the Villarreal game before Marco said it in his press conference that, we were desperate for centre-backs, and suddenly we were linked with 4. And then last season, crunch talks with the owners, where Silva was saying how unhappy he was with the how the market was going. And then we were linked with Salisu and Bassi. We got Bassi. But so far, centre backs, it's just gone very quiet. Chalobah was right at the beginning of the summer. Mengi was before the season even finished. And obviously Chalobah's been left at home from the US tour for Chelsea. So it feels like a no-brainer. But then again, no links in the last 3 weeks, really. So that's a concern. It's a massive concern, really. The centre-back is really key, obviously.
I drive myself mad because the thing is, it can change so quickly in terms of...
It can.
Like Sessegnon, there was nothing for months.
Yeah.
And then it was done. And that keeps me hopeful that we could have similar with the centre-back. I mean, Bassi came out of nowhere last summer, for example.
That's true.
But it's more the timing for me because, you want to have your best team ready for opening day. Manchester United have brought in their new centre-back. They're apparently reasonably close to a new midfielder. They've got their new striker that will probably be the backup, obviously. They're making a few moves now and they have a few already done. Whereas for all the excitement of the past 48 hours, which have been great because we've had so many
fun.
To get excited about and be positive again, including the youth, some of the youth players signing contracts, all of it, it's not done yet. It's not official in terms of Sessegnon, in terms of Smith Rowe. I hope that changes very soon. The signs are that they both will. But you just want it done. You want them officially Fulham players. And Marco Silva wants them like that as well, because we're probably going to play a few more behind closed doors friendlies before that Portugal trip, you would imagine, because we played QPR the other day. I think it was on Wednesday. So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed it can change quickly. There's a few other links that have been rumbling for a while. I think the one more that would be really good to talk about today, Jack, is McTominay. And that's one that we keep getting linked with. And I've seen a bit of negativity online and I don't get it. I think that he'd be a fantastic signing. I think that, brilliant. Again, like Smith Rowe, he is someone that shifts the needle for us. He would get a decent amount of goals from midfield, is a quality player. He's not the Pellegrini replacement, so I disagree on that. But I think he's someone that could partner Andre, for example, and hopefully they can complement each other's skill sets. Andre, deep line playmaker, trying to break up play a bit more. McTominay a bit more big, physical, with a goal in him as well. With next to Andreas Pereira, behind Smith Rowe, Harry Wilson or Traore and Muniz, we're absolutely cooking on gas. I think it'd be fantastic.
There's been a lot of chatter about it's the time of year where you see your predictions. We'll give our predictions a week before the season as tradition, but it was the first time last night. I was just on the timeline, saw some random podcasts that did a video, and they were just a minute clip, and it said, "Oh, who do you think's in trouble?" And then they said, "Oh, I think Southampton and Leicester, definitely, yeah." And then they went to the third guy, and they went, "Oh, this might be a bit out there, but I think Fulham are in trouble." And I was like, "Yeah, I sort of see where you're coming from. Like you're speaking from the outside and sort of looking in." And I think even like you say, I mean that team that beat United just with Tosin out and Diop in, if that plays at United, I think will fare okay. I think the squad right now with no signings is still good enough to stay up in this Premier League. Yeah. I think maybe we won't finish 13th. We might finish 14th or 15th, perhaps. Maybe. Might even finish higher. But I think it's good enough to go again and have a fairly similar season to last season. But we want to progress. We want to go up in the world. We want to look towards the European places. It's a far-fetched thing to say, but I think we are capable of doing it, not only with the players that we've been linked with, but the manager we have at our disposal. Let's wrap up because we've been over 40 minutes. Where's your head at? We've spoken a lot about individual players, but in terms of how we look and, going into the season, are you, I mean, I suppose we've already answered sort of those questions, but where's your head at? Let's not overcomplicate it.
So right now, my head is somewhere in a distant dimension beyond Jupiter because we haven't signed anyone.
It's about to be 7 o'clock.
It could change. It could change so quickly. It is about to be 7 o'clock. It is about to be bomber o'clock, hopefully. Yeah, so I'm frustrated because at this moment in time, officially, nothing's changed. In about 35 seconds, that might change completely. I think that if we can get Sessegnon, Smith Rowe, and Andre / a defensive midfielder replacement for Polina ahead of Old Trafford, I'm very, very happy. If
Agreed.
we can add a centre-back to that, I am completely over the moon. And it's exactly what I would have expected. So that's what I'm hoping for. We've got the rest of the window to sort out other bits. Fine.
Yeah.
But that's what I want. And that's what, to be honest, I expect.
I would, this is last priority. This is maybe deadline day stream sort of stuff. I would like a backup goalkeeper. Obviously you haven't seen Bender play for Fulham yet, but I would like someone else. And I think that's maybe a little bit harsh on Bender. He might be brilliant. I think it's maybe the fact we haven't seen him yet. If we see him out in Portugal or Germany and we see him in play, maybe our opinion will change a little bit. I mean, it's been a weird summer because the Euros has basically tarnished all the Fulham attention, and finally the Euros is over, and the last couple of weeks have been very Fulham focused, and it's been all right. It's been all right. I wouldn't say satisfactory. It's the right players are being linked, but I am like you. I would like Andre to be closer. And I would like Sessegnon announcement to be on this beautiful Friday night. We'll have to wait till 8. Right. So let's just recap a little bit and give you an idea of the Jack and Joe show for this season. We will be back, like Joe said, every week from now until the start of the season. And then, as usual, the day of the upload might be different to what was Wednesday last season. We still haven't worked that out. In fact, it might fluctuate from now until the start of the season. And next week, I hope I'm going to take all this stuff out to Portugal. So hopefully I can, if the internet's good enough, we can record probably maybe looking back on the Benfica game on the Saturday, maybe because we play a week today, and then we can maybe talk again after the Sevilla game. Very exciting. We're back. And here we go, Joe, really.
We're back and ready to do it all over again. Thanks for watching, everyone, and listening on the podcast feed. And hopefully this is the first positive, I would say, ish video of many in terms of getting some bodies in before we go to Old Trafford and start the new season.
Oh, yes, that was my final question. The first 5 or 6 fixtures, pretty okay with me in terms of difficulty. In fact, the whole fixture list I thought was really good.
Yeah, spaced out in terms of the tough ones on paper.
Yeah.
Mostly. I think there's one run where we have maybe Liverpool and Arsenal.
We've got Arsenal and Liverpool back-to-back twice.
Yeah, I mean, not the end of the world, but yeah, early on, winnable home games and decent away games on the most part. So that's all you can ask for. Get some points on the board early doors, alleviate any pressure. Hopefully encourage more bodies to join later in the window because that's the day before Ipswich, so our third league game. And happy days. We'll go from there, I hope. Yeah,
absolutely. This has been it. So I fully expected to be sitting here giving a live reaction to Sessegnon signing with you, Joe, but alas, has not happened. It will happen, Andre, surely.
I remember it happening for Ola Aina, if you remember, years ago.
Yes, Ola Aina, right and that was good fun. What a player he was, by the way. Right, let's end it there. Thanks you so much for watching. Thanks so much for being here. And Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Thanks everyone for watching and see you next week.
Right, that's the first Jack and Joe show done. We've got about, I don't know, how many more? Maybe 40?
Something like that.
Probably a bit more than that. 42? Yeah. But anyway, there's no point doing the maths now. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. And, well, come on, Fulham.